A new survey from Slack says nearly 80% of employees want flexibility at work, suggesting remote work may be here to stay. That only heightens concerns for many employers, worried that work from home arrangements could cause the quality of work to nosedive. A recent report from Northeastern University also found more than half of executives feel this way. So how can employers ensure performance doesn't slide if employees work remotely? Joining us now with an attempt to answer that question is employment lawyer Lior Samfiru. Good morning, Lior. So tell us, what are some considerations for employers when establishing a work from home agreement?
Well, Candace, remote work is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, but it's not as simple as an employer telling an employee, you go work from home and keeping your fingers crossed that things will be fine. So here's my list of 3 must-dos when it comes to remote work. The first thing you want to establish as an employer is the arrangement going to be temporary or permanent? And you want to tell your employee that so that they can plan accordingly, adjust their life, their schedule as to what their work is going to look like. The second thing is you have to decide how performance is going to be evaluated. The employee's not going to be in the workplace, so who's going to monitor performance? How are you going to know if they've done a good job? And how are you going to provide them with feedback? Those are very, very important things to consider. And finally, you want to make sure that that employee has proper support to work remotely from a technological standpoint, from a human resource standpoint, from a supervision standpoint. You have to make sure that they can actually do the job. If you do those 3 things as an employer, you can actually have employees working remotely be very productive and potentially also reduce costs.
Okay, Lior, let's go back to monitoring, which you mentioned in your first answer. Can an employer track an employee's performance or work habits with tools like programs or even software?
So certainly an employer has the right to know whether the employee that's working remotely is doing the job. And yes, an employer can use software to track the employees during working hours. Now that is only limited. An employer can't track an employee's after work hours. So when it comes to technology, number one, the employee should agree to have the tracking device. You don't do that by way of a hidden device. And also beyond that, you want to make sure that the device is on an employer computer or other device, not on an employee's personal phone or computer. But using technology is a means to supervise people and ensure that they're doing their job while they're working remotely.
Some companies will put employees on a performance improvement plan. Can you explain what that is and what an employee should know about it?
So certainly no one likes the idea of being on a performance improvement plan, but it's worth discussing. So first of all, a performance improvement plan is a document, if you will, or something that an employer uses to make sure that the employee's conduct is aligned with the company's expectations, to tell the employee what they may have done wrong and how they can improve so they can be a productive member of the employer's team. Now, if the employee does not agree with this, it's important that the employee does do something, because that performance improvement plan could be used potentially down the road to terminate them for cause. So if you don't agree with the performance improvement plan, you have to say so, and you have to say so in writing. I would send an email or a letter to the employer outlining your views. Here's why you're not taking everything into consideration. Here's what else you need to know. And here's the facts. By doing that, you're protecting yourself down the road. It's important to remember that silence in the face of a performance improvement plan is the same as acceptance. So if you're not agreeing with it, say so respectfully. By doing that, you can potentially protect your job down the road.
Okay, so Lior, maybe this has evolved into maybe an old wives' tale for workplaces, but are warnings required before termination, or can someone be fired without them if it's because of poor performance?
If an employer wants to terminate what we call for cause, in other words, without compensation, without severance, it is a difficult thing to do. It is very difficult to terminate for cause. For an employer to do that, certainly if you're letting someone go because of performance reasons, you have to engage in prior disciplines, warnings, suspensions, etc., before you go to the capital punishment, which is a termination for cause. So the employee doing something wrong is not enough to terminate for cause. You do need a few warnings. It could be 1 or 2. 3 is a good rule of thumb, but to simply jump straight to termination in most cases, Candace, will result in a wrongful dismissal.
Okay, Lior, thank you so much. As always, folks, that is employment lawyer Lior Samfiru answering some very important employment questions in this time.
In a wrongful dismissal.
Okay, Lior, thank you so much. As always, folks, that is employment lawyer Lior Samfiru answering some very important employment questions in this time. Thanks so much. Have a great day.